Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in once again to Authentic Black Goddess TV. Also, thanks to those of you who are tuned in on my other networks. So, as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channels if you haven't done so already. Be sure that you click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time that I go live. Okay, so I am Black for another episode of True Crime Saturdays. The one and the only true queen of receipts and catchphrases has entered the queendom. Thank you, Sylvia, beloved. Thank you. Okay, people. So let's get ready to get into it. Hello, Omari, Sweetie Weedy. Inquiry Mind wants to know truth. Miss Fitz, Jeff ATL, Flow Records is Black. Melanated Brown is Black. Queen Conscious. All right. My Virgo husband is cooking me dinner right now. Oh, honey, well, you got it going on then. Hello, Michael Freeman. Kenla. All right. Tamara says, peace and love, Queen. Same to you. Okay. Emperor Rex. All right. Shantae Ryder. Craig Killmonger is Black. Cherokee the Descendant King says, I'm Black, Queen of the Royal Family. Now I'm ready to hear about these crazy mayor. No less. Dervis, hello, says, hello, beautiful queen, I'm Black. Yes, and thank you for your kind words, and I'm glad to see you also. Hello, Terry. All right. I'm Black, my Empress. Thank you, beloved. Okay. And hello, Alvin. Miss Natural Candy J is Black. Bungani is Black. Let's get into it, people. Because y'all know I'm here for the BS. Yes, another serial killer. Let's talk about it. This one's clearly crazy, okay? But y'all are going to trip out when I tell y'all this story, all right? Because first of all, this person was a whole, or is, he's still alive. He's a whole serial killer. But before he was a serial killer, he killed his grandparents. Now, at the age of 15, no less. And you may wonder, how did he get back out on the streets? Well, I'm glad you asked. In my opinion, it's because he was Hellman's and he said so. Okay? He was Mayo and he said so. Because clearly, who gets out after murdering your grandparents? Yes. But he did. Clearly, he played the mental illness card, okay? But as soon as he got out, he commits right back to killing. So was he really mentally insane? I don't think so. Psychopath, no less, okay? So let's talk about it. His name is Edmund Kemper, all right? Now, this is also nefarious, people. And I'm also going to play some footage of Edmund, what he was saying after he was, talking about killing his grandparents or whatever. Alvin said, what? Damn. Oh, Miss Natural Candy J said, only in the male community. Okay, everyone, please, please, please like and share this video. All right, so let us go ahead and get into it, people. Let's just go ahead and get on into it. Okay, and here's the thing. After he went to prison, after he got caught for killing the other people, Killer says footage of food. Yes, absolutely, we have footage. But after he went to prison, well, he started recording audiobooks for the blind, trying to put himself to good use, no less. Okay, Edmund Kemper is a convicted serial killer from Burbank, California, known as a clinical psychopath, okay, and necrophile. He was dubbed the Co-Ed killer, focusing primarily on young women who were college students. If you have heard of him, it may be from a Mind Hunter that's currently being that was on Netflix, right? The character was based on him. Now, I haven't seen that, but some of you may have seen it. Now, with a background of familial child abuse, Edmund started torturing and killing animals early on. That's always a sign, okay? What child just naturally goes around killing animals? But this is something that he and Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy, I do believe, something that many serial killers do, they engage in. Now, at 15 years old, he shot his grandmother in the head. He said he did so because he just felt like it. Wanted to see what it was like. Shot his, oh honey, he absolutely is another Bundy, but I think he might even be worse. Not really sure as of yet, but to start comparison, he definitely has some of the same characteristics. First of all, both organized serial killers, started killing at the age of 15, because remember, they couldn't prove it, but they do believe that Ted Bundy at the age of 15 killed a girl in his neighborhood, okay, that her killing was never solved. Also, Bundy was into necrophilia, as is he, but the thing that he has Bundy beat on, he was also into cannibalism, okay? Now, Bundy wasn't into the cannibalism that we know of. Okay, so anyway, says that he shot his grandmother in the head to see what it felt like. Now, he then shot his grandfather because he thought that his grandfather would be mad at him for killing the grandmother. So he had to get rid of him too, right? Clearly. Now, psychotic, well, some people say most definitely, but which is why post murdering his paternal grandparents, Ed Kemper spent time in and out of mental facilities such as Atascadero State Hospital for the criminally insane. And after 5 years, pay attention, just 5 short years, people, and he was 15, mind you. So you mean tell me at the age of 20, after you done killed 2 whole people that are your grandparents, no less, you get out? Pay attention. After 5 years, he was released, but not only that, his juvenile record was expunged. Do you all hear this? Yes. He killed his grandmother and his grandfather. OMG, I can't with the demon, says Lee Harvey. No, and I can't either. That's why I continue to do these stories. Yes, he stayed in a hospital for the criminally insane for just a short period of 5 years for murdering 2 people, got out, and his record was expunged. Now, by the age of 24, he had murdered 10 women. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this. Say what now? He did who? Yes, he was 15 when he killed his grandparents. So if he was put in the clinical psychology place or the criminally insane facility, and he stayed there for 5 years, that means he was 20 when he got out, right? Okay, well, by the age of 24, he had murdered 10 women. So that was between 1972 and 1973. The California native started picking up young women to kill. His victims, Mary Ann Pesci, Anita Luchesa, Aiko Ku, they were young female hitchhikers. Now, Cindy Shaw, Allison Liu, and Rosalind Thorpe were college students that he murdered in rural areas. Now, the serial killer hid the bodies in his trunk and then took their bodies to his mother's house, where he would dismember their bodies. Listen to this sick stuff. He would dismember the body parts and have sex with their heads. Excuse me? How do you have sex with a whole head? I'm so curious. But yes, he would have sex with their heads. He confessed to burying one of the girls in his mother's garden because she always wanted people to look up to her. Another was put down a garbage disposal. And then what he would also do, people, is he would chop these people up and he would eat some of their body parts and have sex with the heads, as they said. And then he would wrap their bodies up in some type of paper or whatever. And I know it was one person, he at least threw them over a fence into some water. He was clearly crazy, dismembering people. That's why they called him the Co-Ed butcher. Now, in between kills, he started hanging out at a jury room, a bar. Now, that was a bar, I guess, a bar where law enforcement officers congregated. He befriended police officers. They called him Big Ed or Big Eddie. The reason they called him this because he was 6'9" and weighed over 200 pounds. Okay, he was very tall. Now, on Good Friday of 1973, Edmund killed his mother, Clarnell Strandberg. Yeah, killed her. And then she had returned from a party late, and he killed her in her sleep with a claw hammer. Unfazed, Kemper then went out for a drink. Now, he just killed his mother with a claw hammer in her sleep, and he goes out and has him a drink at the bar, honey. He wanted that raw head action. I cannot. So he goes to the bar and has a drink. And then his mom's best friend, he invites her. Her name was Sally Hallett. He invited her over for dinner, and then he strangled her. Yes, that ended his murder spree. But the part they don't say in this article is that when he killed his mother and her friend, he chopped both of their heads off, decapitated them, and placed them on the mantle. Then fled the scene. Kemper called law enforcement, right? He called local law enforcement and told them what he had done. He then fled to Colorado, even though the police officers that knew him, my picture you saw on Instagram earlier today, that is my reaction from the expunged to now. Okay, Sally D, thanks for your insight to the topic and your contribution. Peace, love, and blessings to you. So he called the local law enforcement and then he fled to Colorado. Now, the police officers that knew him were skeptical of the confession. They didn't really believe it. I don't know why they didn't. They have to be crazy. Well, I guess they didn't believe him because he was so nice to them when he met them at the bar. And they all said that he was a good, likable person. So I guess they thought he couldn't have done it. But that's clearly crazy because let me tell you something. If somebody calls me and tells me that they killed their mother and her best friend, do you think I'm going to take that as a joke? Clearly, I'm going to believe it. Now, anyway, he was incarcerated. Okay, in May of 1973, he was indicted on 8 first-degree murders, and he is currently serving 8 concurrent life sentences. Now, why he didn't get death, I don't know. But he was incarcerated at the, oh, I know why, because they had got rid of the death penalty in California at that time. Back in 1973, yes. That's why the Manson family originally didn't get it either. Now, he was incarcerated at the California Medical Facility alongside the likes of Herbert Mullen and Charles Manson. So in his free time during imprisonment, he picked up a new hobby, reading audiobooks. Now, Edmund Kemp had recorded hundreds of books for the Blind Project, the campaign that was started by the California Medical Facility State Prison to help people who were blind to enjoy books. So some of the most famous audiobooks that he voiced was Flowers in the Attic, The Glass Key, Merlin's Mirror, Petals on the Wind, The Rosary Murders, Sphinx, and Star Wars. He spent over 5,000 hours recording books between 1977 and 1987, until 1987. Patrons of the project have given Kemper accolades for his work. Has the co-ed killer seemingly become more refined? This is what they asked. Now, they say on his recognition for the audiobooks, Kemper stated, I can't begin to tell you what this has meant to me, to be able to do something constructive for someone else, to be appreciated by so many people, the good feeling it gives me after what I've done. He says, which is creepy in itself that he was even allowed to do voice audio for the books. He says, I mean, the last thing I want is for a serial killer to read me to sleep. Yeah, I'll pass on that one. That's what the person who wrote this article said they will pass on that one. And I don't blame them. Please. Do you think I want to be listening to a book, and the killer is the one speaking? I think I would have nightmares, no less. All right? So I'll pass on that one too. That's what I will do. Now, so let me show you some of the pictures of his victims. Everyone, please get the likes up. Okay, this is his grandmother when she was young. As you can tell, this is a younger picture of her. He killed her August 24th, 1964. And then her name was Maud M. Huey Kemper. She was 66 years old. Now, here's his grandfather, whom he also killed on the same day, Edmund Emil Kemper. He was named after his grandfather. He was 72 years old, and he killed him the same day. Now, Kemper was 15 when he killed for the first time. His victims were his father's parents. Maud was shot and stabbed. Edmund Sr. was shot in the head. Now, this is a young lady he killed May 7th of 1972. Her name was Mary Ann Pesci, 18 years old. And then Anita Lucchesa was also 18 years old. They say they were going to Stanford University, no more than a few hours drive away. Ed Kemper parked on a dirt road and told the girls he was going to take them back to his apartment, and then he murdered them in the car. Knowing his flatmate was out, he took the bodies back, wrapped them in blankets, and took them to his room where he dismembered them, taking photographs from time to time. How sick. He beheaded Mary Ann's and Anita's bodies and kept the heads for a while, eventually disposing them in a ravine. Mary Ann was found and identified. Nothing of Anita was ever found. September 14th of 1972, he killed Aiko Ku. She was 15 years old. He taped her mouth and tried to suffocate her. Now, eventually, he succeeded in this, which caused Aiku to lose consciousness. Then he removed her from the car, laid her on the ground, and raped her. Afterwards, he suffocated her with her scarf and put her body back into the trunk. Now and then, he would look at the corpse in his trunk to gaze at his conquest. Later, he placed her on his bed and dissected her like he did with the previous victims. Very little of Aiku was ever found. On January the 8th of 1973, he killed Cindy Shaw, 19 years old. Edmund drove her into the hills near Watsonville, where he forced her into the trunk and shot her with his new gun. He moved the body to his duplex in Aptos, where he had a room at that time. Now, he had sexual intercourse with the corpse the next morning. Again, he dissected her and removed all possible evidence from the corpse. He removed the bullets from her skull and buried the head in his mother's backyard. And remember, that's because he said she always wanted people to look up to her. February the 5th of 1973, he killed Rosalind Thorpe, 23 years old. He also killed Alice Liu, 21 years old. And then on April the 20th of 1972, he killed his own mother, Clarnell Strandberg. Okay, she was over 50 years old. They don't have her exact age. Sarah Hartlett, who was also over 50 years old, his mother's friend, he killed her as well. Ed drove to Aptos to see his mother. She had gone out straight from work, so Ed sat drinking and watching TV. She finally turned up around 4 a.m. He talked to her briefly, then turned to his bed and lay there till about 5, when he was sure she was asleep. He crept in with a claw hammer and a penknife, watched her sleep for a while, then brought the hammer down on her temple with all the force he could muster. He then slit her throat, removed her head, and raped her headless corpse before cleaning up. Now, he raped his own mother. How sick. Why did she never snitch on him? Snitched on him about what? I don't think she knew he was killing those people. Clearly crazy. Omari said sex with dead bodies. Yes, a headless dead body in that. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Gary Ridgway were big time into necrophilia. Yes, Sylvia, they absolutely were. Now, afterwards, after he killed his mother and had sex with her headless corpse and cleaned up, afterwards he phoned Sally Hallett, the mother's friend, a woman in her late 50s, who was a friend of his mother's. He lured her to the house, and then he murdered her and beheaded her before going to bed. And as I told you, he put both of their heads on the mantelpiece. So that is so crazy. That is so crazy, but let me continue because clearly there's more. So, now, Kemper was born December the 18th of 1948 in Burbank, California. He was the middle child of E.E. and Carnell Kemper. After his parents divorced in 1957, he moved with his mother and 2 sisters to Montana. Hold on, people. 1 second, a pop-up. So he moved with them to Montana. Now, Kemper had a difficult relationship with his alcoholic mother, as she was very critical of him, and he blamed her for all of his problems. Now, when he was 10 years old, she forced him to live in the basement away from his sisters. Now, listen to this. She forced him to live in the basement away from his sisters because she feared he might harm them in some way. Let me tell you something. She didn't just fear that he would harm them. She feared that he would molest them. Okay, that's what they said. She feared that he would molest his own sisters. Now, we have to ask ourselves, why would she think that? Maybe it was some type of behavior that he was clearly, exhibiting, but she forced him to live in the basement. She didn't trust him around his sisters. So signs of trouble began to emerge early. Kemper had a dark fantasy life, sometimes dreaming about killing his mother. He cut off the heads of his sister's dolls and even coerced the girls into playing a game he called Gas Chamber. Now, in this game, he would have them blindfold him and lead him to a chair where he pretended to writhe in agony until he died. His first victims were the family cats. Now, at 10, he buried one of them alive. Listen to this. He was 10 years old. He buried a cat alive, buried the cat alive. And the second, 13-year-old Kemper slaughtered it with a knife. He went to live with his father for a short time, but ended up back with his mother, who decided to send the troubled teenager to live with his paternal grandparents in North Fork, California. Now, Kemper hated living with his grandparents. Before going to North Fork, he had already begun learning about firearms, but his grandparents took away his rifle after he killed several birds and other small animals. So on August 27th of 1964, Kemper finally turned his building rage on his grandparents. The 15-year-old shot his grandmother in the kitchen after an argument. And when his grandfather returned home, Kemper went outside and shot him in his car and then hid the body. Afterward, he called his mother, who told him to call the police and tell them what had happened. Now, later, Kemper would say that he shot his grandmother to see what it felt like, not because of an argument. He added that he had killed his grandfather so the man wouldn't have to find out that his wife had been murdered. Oh, that made sense. How crazy. So for his crimes, Kemper was handed over to the California Youth Authority. Should have been tried like an adult. He underwent a variety of tests which determined that he had a very high IQ, but also suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. Kemper was eventually sent to Atascadero State Hospital, a maximum security facility for mentally ill convicts. Let me tell you something. I don't know why they're trying to say that he was schizophrenic, because here's the thing. I've studied psychology and studied these things. People that are schizophrenics, they tend to think that they have different personalities, right? They become other personalities and all of those things. At the end of the day, he was just a psychopath. He clearly knew what he was doing. People who are crazy, they don't try to hide their crimes. Please pay attention. This is all facts. People who are psycho, people who are crazy, not psycho, but people who are crazy, okay? These people don't try to hide their crimes because they don't feel they've done anything wrong. That's what crazy people don't do. A person who's calculating and just wicked and nefarious, they know what they're doing and they try to hide it, which is why he would bury those bodies and all those things that he did to those women. But so anyway, in 1969, Kemper was released at the age of 21, despite his prison doctor's recommendation that he should not live with his mother because of her past abuse and his psychological issues involving her. Now, he rejoined her in Santa Cruz, California, where she had moved after ending her third marriage to take a job with the University of California. Let me tell you something. Whoever she was married to, best be glad that they divorced her, okay, before he got out. Now, while there, Kemper attended community college for a time and worked a variety of jobs, eventually finding employment with the Department of Transportation in 1971. Kemper had applied to become a state trooper, but he was rejected because of his size. He weighed around 300 pounds and was 6 feet 9 inches tall, which led to his nickname of Big Ed. However, he did hang around some of the Santa Cruz police officers. One gave him a training school badge and handcuffs, while another let him borrow a gun, according to Whoever Fights Monsters by Robert K. Ressler and Tom Schoutman. Kemper even had a car that resembled a police cruiser. Let me tell you all something. I want you all to pay attention to this. Do you all not notice a pattern here? Do you all not notice a pattern? You should do a true crime on the white man who killed his whole family and had a shootout with the police. This was in upstate New York in the 80s. Believe it. I saw it on ID. Yes, I heard about that. Listen, and perhaps I will. But listen, let me tell you about something. Do you all notice that many of these serial killers have a fetish with police officers? They want to be in law enforcement, like Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy went to school for criminal justice, okay? And then David, what's his name? David, the BTK killer, right? BTK, bind, torture, kill. Yes. David Nader, wasn't that his name, or Raider? Anyway, he also went to school for criminal justice. And I think he was a security guard or something like that. But they clearly want to be in law enforcement. And he took the test, but he didn't get the job because of his size. I want you to pay attention why that's significant. Because many police officers that go around killing unarmed Black people for no reason, and then they lie and say they fear for their lives, don't you think that they are serial killers? I'm just saying, don't you think that some of them are serial killers? Says Williams. Fire says Williams. Thank you, Ray Williams. Some of these are serial killers. There are serial killers on the police force. I don't care what anyone says. They cannot convince me of anything other. Because many of these serial killers want to work in law enforcement. That being said, many of them likely do work in law enforcement because guess what? Some of them aren't too big, as in Edmund Kemper, and they actually passed the test. Okay? Psychological exams and all of that. Right? Pay attention. So the same year he began working for the highway department, Kemper was hit by a car while out on his motorcycle. His arm was badly injured, and he received a $15,000 settlement in the civil suit that he filed against the car driver. Now, unable to work, Kemper turned his mind toward other pursuits. He noticed a large number of young women hitchhiking in the area. In the new car he bought with some of his settlement money, Kemper began storing the tools that he thought he might need to fulfill his murderous desires, including a gun, a knife, and handcuffs. And let me tell you something. When he went to purchase that gun, the person who sold it to him called the cops after he sold it to him, because he said when he checked his criminal history, even though his murders of his grandparents had been expunged from his record, the person who sold him the gun said that he could see through the black. You know how they blacked it out? He could see that he was involved in some type of murder. And so he was thinking, maybe I shouldn't have sold him those guns, or maybe he wasn't supposed to have them. So he called the police, and then the police went to go see Edmund. The police were kind of reluctant because they were thinking, when they saw the description of him, when they checked his files and everything, they saw that he was 6'9" and weighed over 300 pounds. And one officer said he was thinking, who's going to take that gun from him? Because this is a big dude, right? And he's already killed people. So with that all being said, they drew straws. And one of the officers who was like newly on the force, he was the one who drew the straw that had to go and pick and take the gun. So he went to the neighborhood where Edmund lived. No one was at the house. So as he's leaving, he sees a car turn into the block, right, and park. He walks over to the car to ask the person if they know Edmund Kemper. And as he's approaching the car, he's saying, "Hello, excuse me, I'd like to talk to you for a moment." And then as Edmund gets out of the car, that's when he looked up and said, okay, this has to be him, because this dude is towering over me and I'm 6 feet tall. So that's how he knew it was him. But anyway, he told him, he said, we need to take the gun because we don't know. We have to make sure you have authority to have it. And so he went around to the trunk of the car. He asked Edmund for the gun. And so Edmund goes around to the trunk of the car, and the cop's partner gets out, and they're both standing in front of the trunk. So instinctively, one of them goes to the side of the trunk and the other one goes to the other side, because they're thinking they don't know what he's about to pull out of there, right? So then he opens the trunk and it's something wrapped up in a cloth or like a blanket or whatever. And Edmund goes to reach for it, and the cop tells him, no, hold on, let us get it, because they didn't trust his behind. So they went in there and they got the gun. They confiscated that. Okay? So not only is this crazy psycho back out on the streets, but he's going around buying firearms. Police, okay? So anyway, he noticed a large number of young women hitchhiking in the area. And so in the new car that he bought with some of the settlement money, Kemper began storing the tools that he thought he might need to fulfill his murderous desires, including a gun and a knife and handcuffs. Okay? So now at first, Kemper picked up female hitchhikers and would just let them go. However, when he offered a ride to two Fresno State students, Mary Ann Pesci and Anita Lucchesa, they would never make it to their destination. Their families reported them missing soon thereafter. But nothing would be known of their fates until August the 15th, when a female head was discovered in the woods near Santa Cruz and was later identified as Pesci's. Now, Lucchesa's remains, however, were never found. Kemper would later explain that he stabbed and strangled Pesci before stabbing Lucchesa as well. After the murders, He brought the bodies back to the apartment and removed their heads and hands, mind you. Now, Kemper was also reportedly engaged, in sexual activity with their corpses. So very sick. Later that year, on September the 14th of 1972, Kemper picked up a 15-year-old named Shakur, who had decided to hitchhike rather than wait for the bus to take her to a dance class. She would meet the same fate as Pesci and Lucchesa. In January of 1973, Kemper continued to act on his murderous impulses, picking up a hitchhiker named Cindy Shaw, whom he shot and killed. While his mother was out, Kemper then went to the home and hid her body in his room, dismembered the corpse the following day, and threw the parts into the ocean. Several parts that were later discovered when they washed up on shore. He buried her head in his mother's backyard. February the 5th of 1973, Kemper used a campus parking sticker that his mother had given him to facilitate a double murder. Now, his mother let him use her parking sticker. He took that as his opportunity to go kill 2 people instead of 1 on that day. He drove to the university where he offered a ride to 2 students, Rosalind Thorpe and Alice Liu. Shortly after picking them up, he shot the 2 young women, then drove past the campus security at the gates with the 2 mortally wounded women in the car. After the murders, Kemper decapitated his 2 victims and further dismembered the bodies, removed the bullets from their heads, and disposed of their body parts in different locations. In March, some of Thorpe's and Liu's remains were discovered by hikers near Highway 1 in San Mateo County. At the time of Kemper's murders, 2 other serial killers by the names of John Lindley Frazier and Herbert Mullins were also perpetuating their own crimes in the same area, resulting in Santa Cruz receiving the ignominious nickname, the murder capital of the world, in the press. For Kemper's part, he was dubbed the Co-Ed killer and the Co-Ed butcher. In 1973, Kemper committed what would be his last 2 murders. On Good Friday, he went to his mother's home where he had an unpleasant exchange. Kemper attacked his mother after she went to sleep, first striking her in the head with a hammer and then cutting her throat with a knife, as he would with the other victims. He then decapitated her and cut off her hands as well. And then he also removed, listen to this, he also removed her larynx and put it down the garbage disposal. Queen Ahmadiyyah is always fire. Thank you, Queen Ahmadiyyah, beloved. So he removed her larynx and put it down the garbage disposal. How sick. Now, after hiding his mother's body parts, Kemper called his mother's friend, Sally Hallett, and invited her to the house. Kemper strangled Hallett shortly after, and after she arrived, and hid her body in the closets. Kemper fled the area the next day, driving east until he reached Pueblo, Colorado, where on April the 23rd, he made a call to the Santa Cruz police to confess his crimes. At first, they did not believe that the guy they knew as Big Ed was a killer. But during subsequent interrogations, he would lead them to all the evidence they needed to prove that he was in fact the infamous Co-Ed killer. Now, charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder, Kemper went on trial for his crimes in October of 1973. He was found guilty of all of the charges in early November. When asked by the judge what he thought his punishment should be, Kemper said that he should be tortured to death. Okay? He instead received 8 concurrent life sentences. At present, Kemper is serving his time at California's medical facility in Vacaville. So now I'm going to let you hear from the killer himself. So nefarious, people. Everyone, please, let's get the likes up. Please like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Okay.
I'm an American, and I went off the deep end.
Ed Kemper has been serving a life sentence in this California prison since 1973, when, at the age of 24, he murdered his mother, then called police and confessed to having dismembered college co-eds for 2 years, as well as cannibalizing and raping their headless bodies.
When someone abandons himself to being a victim, he's going to have to be one.
With an IQ of 136, Kemper is now the prison's best reader of books for the blind.
And I've wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that. It started with surrogates at a non-human level. Physical objects, my possessions, other people's, destruction of things that are cared about. And then destruction of things that are living on a lower level, small animals, insects, animals, and then finally people. It started coming to a head again, so I went back down. I ran away back down there. And then a month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them. It made it worse to be on top of a mountain. I was literally on top of a mountain when it happened. And I sensed everybody in the world just stopping what they were doing, turning around, saw what I did, and are coming to get me. And I knew I was paranoid at that moment. I knew anybody that came up there and gave me a funny look or a fishy eye or quizzical look, I'd have blown their brains out thinking they were coming to get me. And if it had been in a city, I would have been a mass murderer at age 15. I would have killed until they gunned me down. I wouldn't have been able to reason my way out of it. I was scared to death, and I was violent. I felt my back hit that wall. I was the rabbit that always ran, that always backed away, always burned his bridges. Suddenly there weren't any more, and my back hit that wall, and I came out screaming and kicking and shooting.
He was released to the one person that authorities at the state mental hospital recommended he never see again.
I got paroled to my mother. Atascadero decided that I didn't never need to talk to her again at all. Don't give her a Christmas present. Leave her alone. She got a pound of flesh out of you. I wasn't sniveling about my mother to them. I didn't like to hear what they had to say about her. She went through 3 husbands like a hot knife through butter. 4 months after I was out, I was back into the fantasy bag. My first date was an absolute disaster. It wasn't her fault, you know, and I didn't blame her even then. I'm saying it was a terrible tragedy, but boy, she didn't ever talk to me again. It was awful. It wasn't sexual or grabbing at her, and I was just such a dork, taking her to a John Wayne movie and Denny's. It's terrible. I'd never been on a date. At 16, that was cool, you know. I'd never been on a date, you know. I was locked up since I was 15. But I can't tell her that. Oh, gee, you don't mind me. You know, she kind of got hung up on my looks or whatever. You know, I mean, she's a gorgeous young lady, pure class, and she saw something there that I guess wasn't there, and boy, she found out quick.
Taking elaborate precautions, he drove around universities and picked up hitchhiking co-eds while wearing these glasses.
Yeah. These are the ones. Now, would you get in the car with this man? Huh? The state has made me much more credible as a human being.
While his mother worked at the university, Kemper buried the mutilated bodies in the mountains and took the severed heads home. Then he slept with their heads for days and finally went looking for more.
But I was losing a grasp on something that was too violent to keep inside forever. As I'm sitting there with a severed head in my hand, talking to it, or looking at it, and I'm about to go crazy, literally. I'm about to go completely flywheel loose and just fall apart. I say, wow, this is insane. And then I told myself, no, it isn't. You're saying that. And that makes it not insane. I said, I'm sane, and I'm looking at a severed... I said, well, wait a minute. I see old paintings and drawings of Viking heroes talking to severed heads and taking them to parties, old enemies in leather bags. Part of our heritage. This is me back then in 1972 and 73. Unable to live with the fact that I just stabbed to death and cut the throat of an innocent young woman. Innocent in the sense that she did not plan on that happening. She didn't do anything specifically for that to happen to her. Yet she was a very active participant in her own death. And in my memory of that, she was 19 years old, and her roommate in the trunk who died right after that was 18. I didn't go hog wild and totally limp. What I'm saying is I found myself doing things in an attempt to make things fit together inside. I was doing sexual probings and things. I mean, in the sense of striking out and reaching out and grabbing and pulling to me, but appalled at the sense that it wasn't working. That isn't the way it's supposed to be. It isn't the way I want it. See what I'm saying? And yet during that time, I become engaged to someone who's young and is beautiful and very much the same advantages and very much the same upbringing and Disneyland values. And she's very much the reason I surrendered. I picked up 2 girls who were so much like the first 2, it was unbelievable. Almost identical circumstances. And I let them go. Everything went towards killing them, and I didn't. But I'm saying, wow, it's uncanny. It was almost like it was meant to be that way. And I said, wow, it's got to stop. And I let them out. They never even knew what was going on. I let them out. I would have gotten away with those two being murdered. I said, no, it's got to stop. And a week later, I murdered my mother. Went back to Santa Cruz and killed her.
He killed her with a hammer in her sleep, cut off her head and hands, but then put her vocal cords in a garbage disposal and threw darts at her severed head.
I am an American, and I killed Americans. I am a human being, and I killed human beings. And I did it in my society.
Now, excuse me, say what now? Did y'all hear that? They said that he, after he cut his mother's head off and removed her vocal cords and put it in the garbage disposal, he threw darts at her head. I'm sorry, what? Threw darts. He really took getting head to another level. Phil Records said that's what Americans do. Oh my goodness, I am so done. Latif said, this nigga's sick. No doubt, right? Sylvia says he really hated his mother with a passion. I saw a documentary on Kemper. Hold on. I saw a documentary on Kemper. He had so much hate and disdain for his mother, and they showed a picture of his mother's decapitated head. I saw that documentary 2 years ago. Thank you for keeping up with this. Oh, with this sick shite. I'm your own white community. Oh, thank you for keeping this sick shite in your own white community. Police officers, I totally agree, Queen. This is why it's easy for them to shoot, beat, and watch people. Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Pay attention. All of those lynchings that I showed you all for Black History Month. Now listen, a lot of the people involved in those were police, okay? The ones sitting there watching people scream and die in pain and agony. Yes, police, okay? They haven't changed. I have to watch this crazy movie or whatever. The Unabomber has a high IQ also. Yes, and so did Ted Bundy. Okay? And I don't know how high Jeffrey Dahmer's IQ was, but he was in medical school. So clearly he was kind of smart, right? But he threw darts at her head. White people problems. Yes, that's what he did. Now, but did y'all hear when he said the part about his mother went through 3 husbands just as quick as a hot knife through butter? Oh, and then when he changed those glasses and said those are the glasses that he wore when he would pick those girls up, and he said, would you get in the most serial killers have high IQs? Yes, absolutely. The ones who get away with it for a long time, the organized serial killers like him, right? But listen, did you all see a stark difference when he changed those glasses? Because he's like, would you get in the car with this person? First of all, no. That's for number one. But the glasses is what made them get in the car. He didn't look any more normal or credible with those glasses on. He still looked a hot mess like a whole demon, okay? At least he couldn't give me a ride down the street. That's what he couldn't have done. That's what he couldn't have done, people. So anyway, with that all being said, listen, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this broadcast. Stop, Queen. Okay, I'm so serious. Code for mama was a hoe. Wow. He said his mom was a slut bucket. Basically, right? Okay. So listen, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this broadcast. But you know what? I think I'm going to be coming back later because I just got a notification about Charlemagne the God talking trash about, what is his name? Lakeith Stanford. What's the guy's name? Lakeith Stanford. Isn't that his name? The guy who played in Judas and the Black Messiah. Yeah. So, and I know they had some beef one time before when he was on Breakfast Club and Charlemagne was trying to hate on the guy saying he can't rap, and he absolutely can rap. I, in fact, like his music. But anyway, yes, Charlemagne is a hater, okay? So he had some things to say criticizing him for his role in that movie. So I'm going to be talking about, yes, Charlemagne is the coon. I call him Charlemagne the devil, okay? So yes, I'm going to be doing a video on that. It's almost 9 o'clock. I'm probably going to go live again at 10:30, okay? With that all being said, also, I want to talk about Monique, not Monique, the girl from Love and Hip Hop, Monique, right? Isn't that her name? what is that child's name? Y'all know who I'm talking about. The girl from Love and Hip Hop. The one that's going around here trying to say that Dr. Dre threatened her. Moniece, yes. I want to talk about her because she's all up in people's business, as she's always in, talking about Dr. Dre and April. You know she can't stand April, right? Because April was dating her, what's his name? I cannot remember his names off the top of my head. You know, her son's father is Lil Fizz. And what's the other guy? Omarion. April was dating Omarion, has a child with him or whatever. So anyway, yeah, she never did like April. So clearly she's all up in their business. Yes, Moniece, she's all up in their business, right? And now she's saying that Dr. Dre threatened her. So I want to talk about that also, okay? And these copycats who are out here trying to do the Gorilla Glue stuff, they're all so ridiculous, okay? How do they make sense? There was another one that ended up at the hospital. Did you all hear about that? Everybody's trying to get clout, and it's clearly crazy. So yes, I'm going to be coming back at about 10:30, okay? And so with that all being said, I wish you all love, peace, and prosperity. Hope to see you Black in the chat. If not, hey, don't worry. Just catch it on the replay. So enjoy the rest of this lovely night, Royals. And until next time,